Hello, ladies, gentlemen, boys, girls, innies, outies, and in-betweener. My name is Chief Constable PAP, and welcome back to another PAP Report. Speaking to the BBC's Radio 4 Today programme, Lord Burnett, Head of Judiciary in England and Wales, echoing my own thoughts, Philip Lee, a London-based geriatrician. The force, which has been trying to sell the former headquarters since 2016, hopes to sell to children's holiday firm PGL. Clearly, I'm not supporting what he did, but if one of the people he threatened kicked the crap out, crappity crap. Don't get me wrong, I'm not supporting what he did, and if one of the people he threatened kicked the crap out of him. Pushing the scare agenda, Michael Gove said, ultimately, until we have a vaccine, then I suspect we're going to have to live with some degree of constraint. Neil Ferguson was branded an arrogant hypocrite for catastrophically undermining the government's position. Robert Jenwick, Housing Secretary, is up next. Jenwick was caught travelling more than an hour to visit his parents despite his warnings that people must remain at home. Mr. Jenwick was also criticised for travelling 150 miles from his London property to his Herefordshire home, and then from there he travelled to his parents' residence in Shropshire. Stephen Kinnock, MP for Aberravon, not loose rules that are left open to interpretation. Of course, because you hate interpreting things, do you? You know, I mean, you love working on guidance rather than the law, and now you're trying to blame the government for giving you guidance. Police were executing a warrant at an address in Harworth on Thursday when a wanted man made off. Police pursued the man into some woods near Brookside Walk. While looking for the man in the dark, they heard a noise, believed to be the sound of someone farting from a nearby bush, said a force spokesperson. One of the pursuing officers said, "I was almost out of wind. Luckily, the suspect still had some. I heard him let him rip and followed the noise to a bush." Another man was found hiding in a small space behind a fireplace at the address. The 35-year-old man was arrested for failing to appear at court, and a 30-year-old man was arrested in relation to other matters, police said. Chief Inspector James Gillespie confirmed the incident and said the officers involved quickly recognised their actions were wrong and inappropriate and have been given advice. What a clown. Who has not been named. Don't you just love the way transparency permeates through the police? Anyway, the PCSO faced his misconduct hearing on May the 5th, where it was found he did commit gross misconduct. Monsell had reportedly told the police officer on another occasion he was going to see his girlfriend, and earlier he had said he was going to a market. We must use a common sense approach and discretion to determine what is reasonable. Apply the 4 E's: engage, enforce. Apply the 4 E's: engage, explain, encourage, and as a last resort, enforce. Jobless saxophone player Laurie Viorel-Ramensi, I'm not sure if that's how you pronounce it, has been fined by Manchester Magistrates Court after being arrested for playing his instrument in a public place. Not a metaphor, as reports have emerged of yet another police constable who's been suspended following allegations of excessive force. The brother of Jeremy Corbyn was one of the several protesters arrested during a protest against the coronavirus lockdown. He said, "With the easing of restrictions, we fully expected open spaces to be busy this weekend." He added it was disappointing that a relatively small group in Hyde Park came together to protest, or because someone used a naughty word that the victim didn't like. That makes it seem like more people are racist, or homophobic, or transphobic for that matter, when in fact, as proven, some people have tried to tell the police. He said Mr. Bidgood's behaviour was seriously dishonest and plainly merited a finding of gross misconduct and his dismissal. This was a case where the background was inconsequential given the nature of the misconduct. There was no unfairness. Two teams of medical researchers and doctors, one in Los Angeles and one in Long Island, New York, are racing to see if estrogen or progesterone treatments could help narrow the gender gap in COVID-19 deaths. Have Dr. Louise Newson in the UK, who is working with NHS England and Professor Tim Spector's team. Estrogen and progesterone, I think that's how you pronounce it, have long been life-changing and at times life-saving. Transgender people have been using estrogen and progesterone for decades to treat gender dysphoria as part of hormone replacement therapy. Cisgender women go through menopause have also utilised these hormones to help with symptoms like hot flashes and mood swings. Now, for clarification, estrogen in men may stimulate breast tissue growth. Men with too much estrogen may develop gynecomastia, a condition which leads to larger breasts, erectile dysfunction. Men with high levels of estrogen may also have difficulty getting and maintaining an erection. To stay on the right side of the police, I'll not say law. In the lines between restrictions and this has made it this has and is making it difficult for people to stay on the right side of the police. I'll not say law because it's not. And the lines between restrictions and between countries have become blurred. In England, the guidance is to meet only one other person outside your household outdoors. Serco sent the email addresses of 300 contact tracers they had already employed out in an email. Now imagine if that was 30,000, 300,000 or 3 million people with more info than just their email addresses. Not only are we being asked to give information that we simply don't have the right to give, we're also being asked to give that information to incompetent fools. The police investigation indicates this defendant distributed fraudulent websites and templates to other fraudsters and co-conspirators. Merseyside Chief Constable Andy Cook, the National Police, the Dean pleaded guilty to fraud by abuse of position and was sentenced at Southwark Crown Court to 4 months in prison, suspended for 18 months on Wednesday, August the 14th. He was also ordered to complete 150 hours unpaid work and a 10-day rehabilitation activity amid allegations he was leaking information to the media during Operation Sacristy. A multi-million-pound investigation into allegations of corruption within the force. Police's oppressive behaviour towards me has been unrelenting and is very alarming. I stood up to bullying and corrupt practices and assisted a criminal investigation, and Sacristy said I should have been commended. A very big thank you to channel Patreon supporters. Your support is truly appreciated. Very big thank you to the channel Patreon supporters. Your support is, of course, truly appreciated. A Welsh MP has been suspended from the Welsh Nationalist Party temporarily while investigations into an assault off. A police officer failed to take positive action when dealing with a guest at the Holiday Inn in Runcorn on the 5th of July 2019. The officer failed to search the guest despite there being reasonable grounds to do so. The officer failed to seize a small quantity of a substance believed to be a controlled drug in the bathroom of the hotel room. He said the initial operation had been subjected to a voluntary review. In March, the independent peer review made minor recommendations, but concluded the 12-month investigation had been conducted with the utmost integrity, transparency and professionalism. The last 4 amendments of the Welsh Health Protection Coronavirus Restrictions Regulations 2020 doesn't seem to have changed. So, Mr. Roberts, as you rightly say, it can't be one rule for one and another for everyone else. A cyclist in Wales has been injured after he rode face first into a barbed wire booby trap set in other locations to seriously hurt visitors in Swansea and Cardiff, with logs also placed on tracks to seriously injure cyclists. Such actions were previously considered sound pollution. I'd suggest they still are. and the reasons were called, and was the reason that bans were there. Such actions were previously considered sound pollution, and I'd suggest they still are, and were the reasons the calls were banned in the first place. Yet, according to councillors, at least in Kensington and Chelsea, the feedback on Adan during the lockdown has been really positive overall, eliciting only a few complaints, or at the very least on Friday afternoons. But he made it clear he had no wish to force this decision on either the council or the borough's residents. I'm not saying that's my view. I'm not saying that's my view or not. No, you fucking bitch. I'm not saying that that's my view or not on the subject, as I'm non-religious. The council officer said that no investigation had actually been carried out, but said that if the council received any more complaints, it would investigate. Maybe it's time people started complaining about the f***ing racket that the clappers are making, banging on pots and pans, letting off fireworks, frightening dogs, and interrupting my peace and quiet. The health protection regulations, which allow people to fine and arrest people, the health protection regulations, which allows for people to be fined and arrested for breaking some of the lockdown regulations. The health protection regulations, which currently allow people to be fined and arrested for breaking certain areas of that legislation, currently make it a problem to leave home without reasonable excuse. Good night, all.